86,000 Romans, 50,000 Carthaginians, the largest army Rome had ever put in one place, and it was winning. Stay, and you will see the exact moment winning became the thing that killed it. By the end of that afternoon, somewhere between 50 and 70,000 of those Romans were dead. Not scattered, not captured. Dead, in a space you could walk across in 10 minutes. And almost every one of them died believing the battle was going well. You have heard this battle explained before, and always from the same side of the field. A Carthaginian general has an idea, the idea works, and you are shown the shape of it from above, like a diagram. I want to show you the inside of the Roman line instead, because from in there, none of it looked like a trap. It looked like the best day Rome had had in 2 years. If that is the kind of history you want more of, subscribe. Those 2 years matter. At the river Trebia, in winter, Rome lost an army. The following summer, in the fog at Lake Trasimene, Rome lost another one, along with a consul. 2 defeats, 2 commanders, tens of thousands of men. So Rome did the thing that had always worked before. It built a bigger army. Not a cleverer one, a bigger one. 8 legions at double strength, plus allies, the largest force the Republic had ever put in the field. On the morning of the battle, command belonged to Varro. Rome had 2 consuls that year, and they did something that sounds insane and was completely ordinary. They took turns. Paulus commanded one day, Varro the next. The Carthaginians knew this. They had been watching. And the day of the battle was Varro's day. Varro looked at the ground and did something no Roman commander had done before. He kept the same number of men, and he made the line narrower. Here is why that is not stupid. A battle line only fights at its front edge. The men in the first rank fight. The men in the second rank step into the gaps. Everyone behind them pushes. They cannot reach the enemy, they cannot swing, they can only lean into the back of the man in front. Which means that, past a certain point, adding men to a formation does not add fighting. It adds weight. Varro decided to use the weight. Narrow the front, stack the ranks deeper than any Roman line had stood before, and drive straight through the Carthaginian center like a wedge through a log. It was not a bad plan. It very nearly worked. Across the field, Hannibal drew his line up in a shallow curve, bulging forward toward the Romans. And at each end of that curve, he put a block of infantry, standing in column, facing inward. Those 2 blocks did not move for the next hour. Before the infantry lines ever touched, the battle was already being decided somewhere else. Look at the edges of the field. Rome had about 6,000 cavalry. Hannibal had about 10,000. That is the number that matters, and it is the one that almost never gets said out loud. Not 86 against 50, 10 against 6 at the edges. On the Roman right, pinned between their own infantry and the river, the Roman cavalry had nowhere to maneuver. Hasdrubal's heavy horse hit them there and broke them in minutes. That Hasdrubal, incidentally, is not Hannibal's brother. Hannibal's brother was in Spain. This is a different man with the same name, and he is about to do the most disciplined thing anyone does all day. On the Roman left, the Numidians did something stranger. They did not try to win. They rode in, wheeled away, rode in again, and kept the allied cavalry busy, achieving nothing. And then Hasdrubal's cavalry, having smashed the Roman right, rode away, off the edge of the field, gone. Nobody in the Roman line had time to wonder where. Now, the infantry. 86,000 Romans walked forward into the curve. The Carthaginian center was not made of Hannibal's best troops. It was Gauls and Iberians, the men he could most afford to lose. The Gauls fought stripped to the waist, and they took the full weight of the Roman advance. And they gave ground. Slowly, at first, the forward bulge flattened. Then it stopped being a bulge at all. Then it began to bend the other way, inward, curving back on itself as the Roman mass pushed into it. If you were standing in the Roman line watching that happen, you would have known exactly what it was. It is the thing every soldier in every army waits for. The enemy center is folding. The wedge is going in. You push harder. So they pushed harder. And here is what nobody inside that line could see. As the curve deepened, the Romans on the outer edges had to angle inward to keep contact with the enemy. The formation was not simply advancing, it was narrowing. Every step forward squeezed it tighter. Hannibal was in that center. So was his brother Mago. Not behind it, in it, on foot, with the men who were losing. Whatever else you make of him, he stood in the part of his own army that was being driven backwards for as long as it took. The line bent. It did not break. That is the whole battle, and it took an hour. Stand in it for a moment. You are in the 11th rank. You have been walking forward for an hour. You have not seen an enemy. You have not thrown anything, and you have not swung anything. Your shield is against the back of the man in front of you, and you are pushing, because that is the job. You can hear it working. The noise ahead of you is moving away from you, which means the line is advancing, which means you are winning. You cannot see left. You cannot see right. There are men on every side of you, and all of them are pushing the same way. You have never felt safer in your life. The two blocks at the ends of the Carthaginian line had now been standing still for an hour. These were Hannibal's African veterans, the best infantry he had. He had spent the entire battle so far not using them. While the Gauls and Iberians were being ground backwards, the Africans stood in column at the ends of the line and watched. Many of them were wearing Roman armor. They had taken it off the dead at Trasimene. Now they turned. Both columns pivoted 90 degrees inward and walked into the sides of the Roman formation. Remember what a line does. It fights at its front edge. The Roman front edge was pointed at the Carthaginian center, half a mile away. The men on the outside of that column were not facing outward. They were facing forward, packed shoulder to shoulder, with their shields aimed at something a long way ahead of them. The Africans did not have to break a line. They walked into a wall of unprotected sides, and the wall could not turn to face them because there was no room left to turn. 3 sides now: front, left, right. Remember the cavalry that rode off the field? They came back. This is the part that makes Cannae rare, and it has nothing to do with cleverness. Cavalry in the ancient world, having beaten the horsemen in front of them, almost always did the same thing next. They chased. They looted the camp. They went after the runners. That was normal, and it was expected. And it is the reason so many battles that should have ended in annihilation ended in a retreat instead. Hasdrubal's cavalry did not chase. They reformed, rode the length of the battlefield behind the Roman army, and closed the fourth side. That is not a tactic. That is discipline, held by tired men on tired horses at the exact moment when everything in their experience told them to go and get rich. If you have come this far with me, you already know this channel would rather do one battle properly than 10 of them quickly. Subscribing helps with that more than you would think. From here, there are no more moves. Nothing that follows is a decision. What follows is arithmetic. 86,000 men were now inside a closed shape, and the shape was getting smaller. Go back to Varro's plan. He had made the formation deep on purpose, because depth was weight, and weight would break the center. In an open field, that is a reasonable bet. Inside a ring, depth is the worst thing you can have. The men on the outside of that mass were fighting. Everyone else was not. They were standing in a crowd being compressed from 4 directions at once, and the crowd was full of shields and armor and other men. There are accounts of Romans in the middle who could not raise their arms, could not fight well, could not lift a sword to shoulder height, because there was a man against each elbow. They had come to the field with the largest army the Republic had ever assembled, and by the middle of the afternoon, that was the problem. Every extra man was one more body in the press. The thing they had added in order to win was the thing that made it impossible to survive. It took hours. It was not a rout. A rout requires somewhere to run. Aemilius Paulus died in the crush. So did 80 men who had held office in Rome. Varro got out. So the question worth asking is not how Hannibal won. Ask what the Roman soldier in the 11th rank could have done differently. He was in the best army Rome had ever fielded. He was moving forward. The enemy was giving ground. Every signal he had access to told him the same thing, and every one of those signals was true. He was winning. That is how he died. Hannibal did not pursue Varro. He had no need to. Rome did not sue for peace either. But that is another battle. So tell me in the comments, at what point in that afternoon, if any, could that line still have been saved?